Hey everybody, it's Chugga Conroy. Welcome back to more Xenoblade Chronicles. Last time, we reached 100% completion in the way of side quests, collectibles, and the party's affinity. This time, well, we are back here in Colony 9 because, believe it or not, there are still some things that we have not seen and done in the world of Xenoblade Chronicles. First of which this time around is this heart-to-heart, watching over them. And don't worry, I'll be getting more into what we're doing this video after this, for the curious types. Sorry, Ryan, I know it's a bit late to be striking up a conversation. It's okay, no worries. Something you want to talk about? This is difficult to ask, but what's your opinion of Fiora and Shulk, as a couple? What? I'm being quite serious. Come on, man, where did this come from? I figured I'd be the last person you'd ask. The three of you have been inseparable since forever. Who else would I ask? Okay, when you put it like that, I wouldn't say they're a couple, but they mean a lot to each other. That seems like a reasonable assessment. Yep, but lately I've been thinking, if you're that close to someone, sometimes you miss the obvious. I see you share my view. So we're on the same page for once. We should not need to see this as a cause for celebration. I am and always will be your ally. You and I share the same goal. So what are you gonna do about them two then? Absolutely nothing. What? Why ask me then? I figured you were thinking it was time to step in. I wanted to know your opinion. It doesn't mean we should act on it. You sure? If they're not gonna do anything about it themselves, knowing whether to intervene or not is something you must learn. Trust me when I say they are fine. Just continue looking out for them. Alright, I get it. No point arguing, I suppose. I'll leave it to you, Dunban. Thank you, Ryan. After talking to you, I feel more certain about how to handle them. And that means a lot. I don't want to call that one a complete waste of time, but Dunban, that was a little bit pointless, as good as your sentiment might have been. So, what is it we're doing this time around? There's not any more side quests left for us to do. We have all the collectibles, we completed the affinity chart. What is there that is left other than heart-to-hearts? Well, these are gonna kind of be topic videos from here on out. Just kind of things that I couldn't find a good place to really talk about and they didn't really fit in anywhere else. This video in particular is going to focus on beta test and unused objects found within the game. For those of you that don't know what this means, every game has at least some unused content, things that are within the files of the game that are never actually present in the finished product. So let's start things off small before we get into the good stuff. There are several materials that presumably would have been dropped by enemies that you cannot obtain in the finished game. And a lot of these are interesting because they have full English names, fully translated English descriptions, and on top of that, some of them even hint that you'd be able to get mementos from characters in the story that died. The first one we're showing is not one such cool item. This stone is just a placeholder. Pretty much if you obtain an item that you're not supposed to, 9 times out of 10, it'll be this. Next is the Wild Beast's Bone. While this might not be interesting to some, I personally do like to comedically think of it as the Wild Beast on the bone that Ryan said he was going to cook in that heart-to-heart last video, but that's just me. The next 3 items are where it gets good, ironically because these are technically not unused items, just very unlikely that a normal player would ever see them. They are 3 masks that are rare drops by the Bionite Order Inquisitors, but you only fight them once, and they don't drop any chests. So you will only get these by Ricky's Yoink on very rare occasions. They all have notes written on the back. One says, "Sorry Daddy," which I kind of wonder if that means that there are other Inquisitors that are children of Umea than just Tyrea. Second one says, "Bring on the good life," and the last says, "Aim for high office." Next is Mumkar's Claws. What's interesting about these is that Mumkar has an unused equipment screen that you would be able to see if you could open the menu during the Battle of Sword Valley at the very beginning. They're known as the Steel Claws there, so these are a completely different item that's just a material. I'm guessing he would have dropped them after being defeated. After that is Tyrea's Mask. Just like Mumkar's Claws, she probably would have dropped this after being defeated, but instead, she leaves no items behind and a cutscene of her losing her mask just comes on instead of you obtaining it. Following the pattern of the last few items, I'm sure you can tell what Gatto's gun turret was going to be, but there's a little bit more to this one. Gatto was apparently going to drop another unused item in addition to this one upon his defeat. There is an unused weapon for Sharla called Gatto's Cannon, and it is one of the cannons that is on the back of Jadeface. I'm really sad this one was cut, not only because of just how cool looking it is, but also because in the same vein of Melia wielding her father's Imperial staff, or indeed Yumea's Empress staff, I would have loved to have gone into battle against Egil or, yeah, even Zanza, wielding the cannon that Gato used on Jadeface. That would have been awesome, but unfortunately, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. I want to preface this next item by saying, prepare yourself, its description is easily the most tasteless text in the entire game. Leader's Plate. This is Yaldabaoth's armored plate. Could be turned into nice tableware. Think back to how Egil died and how he sacrificed himself so that we could stop Zanza.
They will judge me not in life, but death.
And all Shulk can think about is eating off the armor that Egil died in. Dixon's amulet, as I'm sure you would guess, was probably meant to be dropped by Dixon after you defeated him. And finally is Alkar's Inferno Eye, probably going to be dropped by Dragon King Alkar on Prison Island, but they ultimately decided to make this a key item instead of a material. There is a single unused key item known as Swamp Item 5 Temporary. Can you see it? There's something in the swamp! I bet I could see it if this item wasn't unused. Yeah, this is clearly a placeholder. Let's move on to equipment that doesn't tie into unused materials. There's surprisingly not much of interest here, just little things like the bandages that Dunban wore in flashbacks actually being an equipment set for him that you can't really obtain. There's a mega powerful weapon for Shulk that looks identical to the true Monado known just simply as the Debug Sword. This was just there for testing. And I guess there's that unused weapon for Shulk that uses the same model as the Imperial Guard shields in Alchemoth, but I talked about that in our first visit to Eretz. And that's all the unused items that I was personally able to dig up. Items are cool, but you can't talk about unused content in Xenoblade Chronicles without talking about the granddaddy of it all. The single biggest piece of unused content in the entire game. This takes us to Dunban's house. That's not even a joke, it really does. In Dunban's house, you might notice this framed photo in his kitchen. Does it look familiar? It should. If you want to get a better look, he has the same photo hanging up in his bedroom on the wall right here. This photo should look familiar to you, because we've seen the contents of it before. This is the location that we've seen in cutscenes, but have never actually gone to. It was specifically seen in Egil's flashback of remembering his talks with Arglis before he became Zanza. We also saw it in the ending when Alvis was talking about the creation of the Homs and life in this universe. This location is known in the Japanese version as Kyoshin, or Giant God. This is simply the Japanese name for Bionis, and I believe this to just be a placeholder name. In actuality, this location is the left shoulder of the Bionis, or referred to by many as simply the Bionis shoulder. This area is gorgeous. It contains some of my favorite views from around Bionis, and it's really a shame that this was cut from the finished game. It's believed that this was cut late in development. The reason being not only because of just how pretty and polished it is in a lot of areas, but because when this game was announced at E3 2009, in the batch of screenshots that were first shown off, this area was in one of those screenshots, meaning that less than a year before its release, this was still intended to be in there. Do you remember all the way back in Frontier Village how strange it was that you just went into that spring on top of the tree and got teleported from there to Eretz, making it the only time in the game that you don't just walk someplace yourself or end up there through natural progression? Well, the removal of the Bionis shoulder is the reason for this. In the game's data, the areas are surprisingly well organized. They are in the order of which you first visit them. And the Bionis shoulder is stored between Frontier Village and Eretz. Presumably, there would have been a pathway leading out of Machina Forest to here. Because you can see the head of the Bionis from just about anywhere on the Bionis shoulder, I think it's safe to assume that you would have been meant to walk toward that just because it's a really easy to see landmark and very distinguishable. Upon getting there, you would have probably ended up making it to Eretz. What's so special about the Bionis Shoulder? Like I said, this is the second largest area in this world. There's quite a few objects of interest, some even revealing of changes that occurred to Xenoblade Chronicles throughout its development. To get the most basic stuff out of the way first, while it might look pretty, Bionis Shoulder is very much unfinished. This place has no NPCs, quests, monsters, or even music. The textures are mostly reused from other maps, or just very low resolution compared to the rest of the game. It's very barren to say the least, so I'm just going to cut around the boring stuff as not to waste too much time, and only show the points of interest. If you'd like to go to the Bionis Shoulder yourself, I can't help you with that. I made this video with help from people with the know-how to access hidden content. I did not do this alone. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get on to the fun of exploring Zanza's lost body part! And I ain't talking about how Colony 6 is totally located on the schlong. Thanks, Super Smash Bros. Trophy. Thanks a lot. The first thing I want to show is present all around this map. There are treasure chests that are in set locations, a mechanic absent from the finished game, unless you count the odd giant or Hyantia treasure here or there. Though unfortunately, you cannot interact with any of them, so my personal guess is they're just placeholders and they simply hadn't gotten around to replacing these chests with item orbs yet. Second is the caves. I'm being very vague with this one, but I do have good reason. This exact same cave exists in 3 different places around the map, and it doesn't lead anywhere, it just goes in a circle. These may have been placeholders for connections to other maps, but interestingly, there's ether crystal deposits here. You can't interact with them just like the treasure chests, but I find them interesting as they look drastically different from how they do in the final. Third is the water. Yes, the water. Hey, have a little faith in me. It's better than it sounds, and that's saying a lot since it's water, the source of all life. Well, you want to go for a swim in your scenic vacation to Bionis Shoulder. You're just swimming along and whoop, unfinished collision data! It's pretty incredible falling through the water and going all Metal Mario on this place. Though I didn't have this problem, I've heard horror stories of people getting stuck under the water and never getting out. Oh, and this is probably a good time to mention that if you ever find your way to Bionis Shoulder, don't save. Trust me, it's kinda nasty for the save data to save in an unused location. The next thing I wanted to show is very minor. These stone formations have wooden scaffoldings around them. It's just the same texture repeated thousands of times, and you can get stuck by jumping down to lower levels with no way back up unless you skip travel. It's very clearly not finished. I only showed it because it sticks out so much. Next up, there's houses and even towers dotted all throughout this map. Some have theorized that these are Giants' ruins since they're made of stone and Argolis appears in a cutscene here, but I personally don't agree. What with these doors being shorter than Ryan and them being meant for giants according to this theory. The buildings are little huts which seem to fit the Nopon, I guess. Yeah, they're a complete mystery. But, even if they are, they bring me to easily the most interesting aspect of the shoulder. Can we get a drum roll for the Walled City? In a game with only 5 towns, this is a huge deal. It reuses a lot of assets from Colony 9 and Colony 6, which makes it at least seem like a Homs colony. I don't want to make it sound like I know what this place is, because in truth, I don't, and neither does anyone outside the dev team. But I'd like to share my own personal theory of what I think this place is. The simple version, I think this is where Colony 6 was originally located. The nerdy fan who plays this game too much and thinks about it way too much version, it fits the bill for being the original location of Colony 6 because it's a walled city with a farm outside it. It uses a lot of the same graphical assets as Colony 9, Bionis Leg, and the final Colony 6. Plus, I feel like it makes sense from a story perspective. Humor me a little bit here. Colony 9 and Colony 6 seem really separate in the story's beginning. Like, almost no one but the Defense Force travels between them, despite how close together they are. I know they give the explanation of Tephra Cave being dangerous even for the Defense Force, but then there's this line in the intro cutscene.
Young man, we've been given the order to retreat. We're pulling back the line to Colony 6. That's where we'll set up the last line of defense.
Pulling back the line to Colony 6. from Sword Valley. Sure, we'll climb all the way back up Valak Mountain, cut across Magna Forest, go through the Bionis interior, down Satoral Marsh, and then set up the line of defense there. This might just be me being, well, me, but this line always bothered me on repeat playthroughs after knowing how the world is laid out. If Colony 6 were next to Valak Mountain, though, this would make a bit more sense. Plus, there's also the fact that Colony 6's map is very small, and as we've established, uses almost entirely assets from other areas. Heck, the Splintered Path is really the only major set piece other than the farm and the colony itself, and it's nearly a carbon copy of the land formation near the waterfall on the shoulder. There's only one hole in my theory as far as I'm aware. The refugee camp and the ether mine are pretty deeply worked into the story to be around the Bionis leg. I guess nothing's stopping the ether mine from just being on the Bionis leg and there being a tiny village nearby, but I'm grasping at straws to justify that point. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Oh, okay. This is more like my take on Yuri of Wynn's gaming mysteries than it is on game theory. I'm fully aware that he's funnier than me, but hey, my end slates are long enough to at least pretend that we're comparable, right? Right? Ah, well. So now that we've seen a lot of the more interesting aspects of the Bionis shoulder, why was it cut from the finished game? Well, word on the street is that Xenoblade Chronicles ran way over its development time and its budget, so they were forced to wrap things up after too long. Finishing the shoulder was probably shoved off to the side, and they just ran out of time to go back and finish it. Not very exciting of a reason, but that's the best I got. Seriously. I had Japanese interviews with the dev team translated for this LP. They mentioned the shoulder a grand total of 1 time, and this quote is all they had to say about it. Yeah, disappointing to say the least. But if any area had to go, I think they made the right choice. This game was fantastic even without this place, and even though it is a shame that we had one less giant grassy meadow to run around in, we have others. That's all the unused content that I'm aware of. Sorry for taking so long to talk about all this and teasing it for so long, but I wanted to make absolutely sure I had all the footage necessary due to most research out there being incomplete for stuff other than the shoulder. I had to do a lot of my own research for the items. Well, okay, this is only true when talking about research that isn't in Japanese. I must give thanks to Clyde Mandolin for translating the Japanese Xenoblade wiki for me and helping me uncover the English version text for the unused items. This video's been a long time in the making, and I hope it paid off. I really genuinely hope that I taught even Xeno veterans some new things with this video. I suppose while it's not an unused item or a beta test area or anything like that, there is one more thing that I could mention in this space, and that is this picture. What you are seeing is the original concept for the Bionis and the Mechonis. It is from this original concept that this entire game spawned from. Tetsuya Takahashi just had this idea one day and it ultimately blossomed into this game that you've seen for several videos now. Pretty awesome that this is what it all started from. I don't mean to make it sound like this video's over quite yet. We still got a little bit of time. Let's end this mostly informative video with a blood pump connecting with another blood pump! That's the edgy way of saying we're ending this video on a heart-to-heart, you know? You gotta make everything all M-rated because that makes it instantly automatically better. The sad thing is, a good chunk of the internet seems to actually think that way. I know from experience. But let's not think about that. We're gonna be viewing a very important heart-to-heart this time around. We're gonna be resolving a very long, unresolved character arc. What, Mumkar? No, we're not resolving that one. I'm of course talking about, down here in the Ether Mines, Ryan and Sharla. We are viewing a Wistful Glow. This ether lamp, it's like the ones in Tefra Cave. You mean the ones on the route between our 2 colonies? Those would have been put there by people from Colony 6. You learn something new every day. You see the yellow glow. That's because the lamp uses electric ether crystals. Didn't know that? Ether! I guess some days you learn 2 new things. I do know that electric-type crystals glow the brightest. Bingo! Once upon a time, replenishing lamps with fresh ether was my job. It was my very first job, actually. I used to follow the route all the way down into the ether mine. Sounds like fun! I used to get lost when I started, but I soon got the hang of it. We used to time each other to see who could get it done the quickest. You mean you and Gatto? Am I that obvious? You start talking about your old life and I see tears. It had to be Gatto. Didn't think you were even paying attention. Oi! I always pay attention to you! Shulk said something interesting to me once. He thinks you're insensitive when it comes to this kind of thing. He can talk. The only girl he's ever talked to is Fiora. I'm almost jealous. I mean, of your male camaraderie. I wonder what it would be like, being a guy doing guy things. Gatto would be just a friend. Even the most ridiculous thing is a serious question to you. It's quite sweet, actually. I guess that's why I like you. What? What am I missing here? I meant that if I were a guy, I might have been able to fight. I could have stayed with Gatto in Colony 6 until the end. That's all. I really didn't want to leave without him. Not while the Mechon were destroying the entire colony. I'm so sorry, Charla. Maybe I should have just kicked up a fuss like a little girl. Refused to leave. He always thought the best of me, trusting in me, relying on me. But I was never as strong as he thought. I'm sure letting you go was just as hard for him. But he put his feelings aside for your sake, so you could live on, so you could lead the colony. I know. But I miss him so much. Cheer up, Charla. Hey, how about this? From now on, I'll work really, really hard. And then one day, I'll be the man of your dreams. How long's that gonna take? I can't spend my entire life waiting around. That's my Charla, alright. I like you best when you're giving me that big ol' smile of yours. Looks like you're learning fast. Keep those compliments coming. And by the way, Ryan, thank you. I ship it so hard, and it's actually canon if the ending is indication. I love it! It's always kind of annoying, like, whenever they have things like that, where it's just kind of implied, but they just kind of step around it and skirt it, and they're just kind of like, maybe something happens, but we're not gonna tell you. Nah, Ryan and Charla are cute together, and I'm glad that, like, they just kind of knew that we wanted to see that happen. Love it so much. But that's everything for this time around. Hold on a minute, we're not quite done yet. I want to go to the Hyantia tomb because, there was a certain something that I hinted about way in the past that I said I would cover, but I never actually did, so I'm just gonna stick this here because I can't really think of a better place to stick it. Please don't use that in a context for YouTube poops. Well, it is that there is a place in the Hyantia tomb that we visited on our first venture here. It is the second treasury, and I noted that, hey, wait a minute, second treasury, there was no first treasury. And I said that later on that we would find out exactly why that was. Well, we never did that, so let's take care of that now! Ooh, okay. You want to climb down here from the Tower of Trials, and if you've gotten the Hyantia emblem, which we got just a few videos ago, this wall will give way. Upon going through, there's some item orbs, things like that. There's no map for this area at all, but at the end of it, you will discover the Imperial Treasury, guarded by a level 36 regular enemy, not threatening whatsoever. Wow, that item orb actually went through the ground. I guess it wasn't properly mapped. But here, we have a Hyantia treasure. I believe this is the last treasure anywhere in the world. Debuff resist 6, Grace gloves with an ether up 5, and Grace shoes with agility up 5. I guess this equipment could definitely be better if you had crafted your own gems, but that debuff resist 6 can really be useful for tackling the super bosses. So, in the end of this video, where I do all the little things that just simply didn't fit anywhere else in the Let's Play, there's a bit of an elephant in the room of something I haven't mentioned. The super bosses. I killed Final Marcus, and I didn't kill anything beyond him. So, story time. Basically, I'm in the middle of moving right now. And I am working on a video dealing with the super bosses. In fact, most of it's even recorded right now. But I wanted to note all of the unique monsters in the same video, because every unique monster drops an affinity coin, and having more affinity coins means more skill links, which greatly increases your chances of winning against the super bosses. Making a video noting every unique monster, optimizing my equipment properly for the super bosses, some of which are only dropped by enemies, and then doing those fights in their entirety, that takes a lot of time, and I just simply don't have the time to work on that right now because I'm in the middle of moving. I asked you guys, would it be okay for me to just finish absolutely everything except for the super bosses and upload the super boss video, say, sometime during my next Let's Play? And many of you supported this idea. Like I said, the super boss video is mostly recorded, it's just finding the time to edit it together, and I just don't have the time to edit something that complex right now. And the most of you said you supported this, so we're gonna be saving the super bosses for a later time, and next time on Xenoblade Chronicles is gonna be the final video of the main series until then. Join us next time for the remaining heart-to-hearts that we haven't shown, and a tiny bit more closure on the story. See you guys then.